Hello again, my name is Irish Freethinker, and I would like to say thanks very much for having a look at my YouTube download. What I would like to do, if I may, is to have a look and talk about the report, I think it's the Murray report, on Catholic Church priestly paedophilia. It is the sad story of child sexual abuse that took place in the Archdiocese of Dublin by priests, and the effective cover-up by the church authorities at the highest level of this sexual abuse of children. The Irish Times on the 1st of December, in an article that was written by two of its journalists, Ronan McGreevy and Patsy McGarry, gave the following quote, which is very indicative of the attitude that the Catholic Church had in relation to priestly paedophilia, in relation to the priests' sexual abuse of children. And they reported in the Irish Times as follows. In June 2001, every diocesan bishop in the Catholic Church was written to in Latin by the prefect for the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, who was then Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, now Pope Benedict. They were instructed that where complaints of clerical child sexual abuse were concerned, these were first to be referred to Rome, and it would decide how they were to be dealt with. The congregation document was also accompanied by a letter, again in Latin, stipulating that the instruction was to be kept secret. The Irish Times is a quality and a reputable newspaper, and we are indebted to its reporters, who are again Ronan McGreevy and Patsy McGarry, for information about this, because what it shows, at least what it shows to me anyway, is the attitude of the Catholic Church, both at the highest level, both in Ireland and in the Vatican. Their attitude to priestly paedophilia, that is, to priests sexually abusing children. Essentially what they are saying in this document that they circulated to their bishops is, if you have any complaints about priests who are sexually abusing people, then what you have to do is send that information to the Vatican first, and we, the hierarchy, will decide what to do with it. Now, not only do they say that, but they actually send another document saying, in Latin again, saying that, by the way, if you're asked about this, it didn't happen. Keep it a secret. Don't tell anybody about it. And it is that kind of cover-up that to me demonstrates the criminality at the highest levels of the church towards this crime of child sexual abuse, towards the crime of paedophilia. They were prepared to cover up almost at any length in order to preserve the image, the finances, and the reputation of the church, and it didn't matter. The children's lives were being destroyed, and I think that is such a disaster for those children, and it answers for me many of the questions that I would have in relation to what a church is. A church is a man-made body, and in Ireland especially, and perhaps in many of the organisations of the Roman Catholic Church, as a man-made body, its interests lie with the power and with the privilege and with the money of that man-made organisation. I would like, if I may, to quote another reporter. Well, actually, this isn't a reporter. This is a priest commenting on the report on child sexual abuse in the Archdiocese of Dublin. His name is Eamon Conway. He is a priest of the Tuam Diocese. He is also a professor of theology of Mary Immaculate College in Limerick. And in this quotation, he is speaking about Bishop Murray, who was an auxiliary bishop of the Archdiocese of Dublin at the time, who was severely criticised for his role in essentially protecting paedophile priests. Eamon Conway writes, again, he writes this on the 1st of December 2009, shortly after the report was published, and he says, and I quote, As far back as 2002, Bishop Murray openly acknowledged the seriousness of having failed to investigate satisfactorily what subsequently turned out to be a clear case of horrendous child sex abuse. I do not believe scapegoating him now will serve the healing of victims or of the church. And essentially, what Eamon Conway, this theologist of Mary Immaculate University in Limerick, Mary Immaculate College of University of Limerick, what he is saying is that Bishop Murray acknowledged that he didn't treat the whole issue of paedophilia in the Archdiocese of Dublin correctly. He was too lenient. What he did actually was that when a priest got himself a reputation as being a child sexual abuser, that priest and his files were, well, the priest anyway, was moved to another parish where he had fresh children that he could essentially abuse once again. And he wasn't the only priest that happened to, and this wasn't the only bishop that allowed that to happen. The report, if you read it, and it's available on the net, shows just how many of these paedophilia priests, these child rapists, these child abusers were sent around from parish to parish. Their files hidden away or lost or never sent with the priest, and essentially what happened was that these priests were then free again to commit these atrocities on more innocent children, and that cycle continued. And what this priest eventually is saying is that right now he's saying that we should not be making a scapegoat out of Bishop Murray, because this will not serve the healing of the victims. Well, it is my opinion that if you really want to serve the healing of the victims, whatever about the healing of the church, that is absolutely no concern of mine, because as far as I'm concerned, that is a dangerous, man-made and rather disastrous organisation. But if you are interested in the healing of the victims, then what you really ought to do is bring to justice, in the first place, those priests who sexually molested, abused and raped children. And secondly, you bring to justice also those who knew that was going on, and those who put their own power and privilege before the interests of justice. You bring these people to justice. You charge them with your crime, and you make them answerable in a court of law the same way that any other person accused and charged with a criminal offence, should it come to that. That the process of prosecution and due process be given and put to these paedophile priests. I believe that would be the right way of giving closure and some sort of healing towards these innocent victims. It is, I suppose, evident that this whole idea of child sexual abuse and its cover-up affected me deeply. This report of child abuse into the Dublin Archdiocese comes hot on the heels of the Ryan report, which was a most sickening episode in Irish history, where children by their thousands were put into effective prisons and were sexually abused, were starved, were raped, were battered, were beaten and were murdered by the religious organisations and institutions in this country. These children were put into institutions, so that these two reports come almost consecutively. If, by the way, you're interested in finding out about the Ryan report, one, it's on the web, check it out, Google it. But also this book by Bruce Arnold, and it's called The Irish Gulag, and it is a history of how the state put these people into the care of the religious organisations who subsequently abused them something terrible, and how the state is really responsible for this. So I recommend this book. It's tough reading, it's sad reading, indeed it's tragic, but it is absolutely necessary for anybody that wants to see it from the child's point of view, the torture and the abuse that went to. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm sick of them. As far as I'm concerned, the cover-ups, the actions are criminal. Let's prosecute these people, and let's show them that it simply cannot and never should happen again, and if it does, they face the consequences.